pūtea SOUNZ.
Engari o winga mana, rauranga tirama, tēnā koutou katoa. Nau mai tau mai and welcome to Inspiring Journeys Through Music, presented by Toitera Puoru Sound Centre for New Zealand Music. Ko Lana Tipiki Broughton tēnei, and today I'm joined by Ria Hall. Are maira. Kei te wahine, ku taimai I tauranga moana, taimai rā ki te panipani o te ika nei, I runga I te reo karanga, kia rongo I o kōrero, I o kupu, I o whakaronui. Tēnā ki mo I o te ao ki a koe, ki eti I kōrero mau wano, tēnā tukuna mai I eti I kōrero mau.
Ai te tuakana tēnā koe, o tira tēnā tātou I tēnei kaupapa ātāhua I tō tō mai tātou kia kōrero tahi, kia hui tahi. Hoi anō ko Ria Hall ahau, he Ria hau no maua o maunga, no ngā iwi e toru o te moana o tauranga, ngā tirangi nui, ngā itirangi, ngā ti pukenga, e mihi nei, e tau nei.
Tēnā koe I o kākau tāniko, tau mai. So let's go back in time a little bit. Let's go on a bit of a journey to your journey. Not quite when music all began, but what was it like in your early days? What type of person were you? Because we see the strong presence that you have today. He reo pāpā o nui. Have you always been quite outgoing and had this very strong presence? What was it like early on?
Well, I'm the youngest of 4 girls, raised by my father. And so as the baby of the family, it was always kind of like not a struggle, but a hustle to be heard, to be seen. And so I suppose, amped that up in our whare. My sisters also had a really big hand in raising me, as did the rest of our whānau. But I think there's something to be said about a young girl being raised by her father. My father was a really simple meat and 3 veg kind of man, a man of the land, was always hunter-gatherer. We were always at the beach gathering tuatua, or he was in the bush, or he was a marakai man, really well-versed on the taiao, knew when things were good to grow and when to sow those, all that hua. So that's the kind of environment that I grew up in, and he made me not hyper-sensitized, but I was really aware as a young girl of everything that was happening around me, and I suppose that's where my curiosity kind of began in terms of this thing called music, this thing called singing, and it began quite early. Yeah.
When do you have a memory of when you first started singing, or when you sort of realised, because he reo pāpā o nui, I have to come back to that, when you sort of realised that, hey, there's actually something a bit different here. Maybe it was reading the signs from other people's reaction. Do you have some of those early memories?
Yeah, so the place that I grew up in a little hapori maunga tapu, and I was brought up around our marae, so around all our pakeke, and around te hahi rātana, and that played a really, really big role in terms of my ability to quickly latch on to sound, to latch on to harmony. And I was a part of the choir as a kid. We would practice on the marae in our room called the rangi Māori, which is the specific rātana band room. So, and I reira katoa ngā manu ti ori ori o mātou, o te hapu o Ngāti. He otira ngai te rangi. My aunties, I think really fondly of an auntie of mine who was also my Māori teacher at school at Tauranga Girls College, Auntie Connie Farrell, who was just an incredible singer, really positive and wanted to draw out qualities that you didn't actually know were there. And she was slowly tuning me over the course of a number of years. And so, I've got really, really vivid memories of being in the rangi Māori at about age 7. Around these particular nannies and aunties, and just really, you don't realise at the time, right? But I don't want to use the word indoctrination, but you're kind of being indoctrinated in this like cascade wall of incredible musicality and incredible sound that was just part of the DNA in our particular hapu and in the tāhuna in our particular bay that we grew up in. So I always attribute it back to those moments, and particularly at that age. I think 7 was a real pivotal age for me in terms of starting to really enjoy singing.
So you were really nurtured by these nannies, by these elders who surrounded you. Thinking about those times and some of the values and qualities that would have been passed down to you, what are some of those qualities that you still carry with you today as an adult into the industry and through your waiata?
Tētahi pātai e hoa. They always carried themselves with an amount of integrity, dignity and grace. And I try my very best to encapsulate all of that in every kind of sphere that I step into, creative-wise, collaboration-wise, haka-wise, tito waiata-wise, and just in life. I think just generally having those really settling value systems and the way that you present yourself authentically to the world, I try to carry all those things along with me, because those mātāpono, he mea tino nui. Kia au, engari, kia tātou te Māori. Carrying oneself with grace, humility, integrity, very, very important. And now as a mama, I'm really trying to instill the same values into my tamariki.
Ataua, let's have a short kōrero about your tamariki.
Yeah.
How do they inspire you in your waiata, but in every day? You know, they're at home and you look after them, or they come with you. But even when they're not physically with you, you carry them with you. Yeah. How do they influence the way in which you carry yourself with that grace that you speak of?
Yeah, it's a, oh man, mamahood is a trip, right? It's something that I'm consistently and constantly learning about every single day. Even now, while I'm away from my babies, at the back of my mind, I'm clocking over as to what has to go on when I get back home. You know, what my roles and responsibilities are as a mama when I get back to my tamariki. But yeah, my role as a mama, it's you know, it's tough. It's a really tough gig. It's a beautiful gig, but it's a really tough gig. And I'm a solo mama of 3 under 5. My babies are 4, 3 and 2. And while I live in Tauranga Moana and have my whānau there to support, which, man, I don't know how I would be able to move in the spaces that I've continued to move in. Even mihi, I don't know how I would be able to do that if I didn't have the support of my family. So, oh man, e tika ana kia mihia, ahau e rātou. So, I'm still learning, mate. Like, there's been lots of ups and downs in my transition into mamahood. And there was a period of time there, particularly when I was hapu and then gave birth to my second child, Hikareia, where I really underwent a bit of a, I don't want to call it postnatal depression, but there was definitely an element of hardship, emotionally, mentally. So yeah, there've been lots of peaks and troughs in this journey. But my children are a manifestation of what my ancestors wanted me to be. And I'm really grateful that I've had these 3 blessings come earthside to continue on this journey with me in life. And yeah, it's an incredible blessing.
Tēnā koe. And I really appreciate you sharing that kōrero, that you're still learning, and we're all still learning.
Yeah.
And going through life and experiencing a lot of the hardships, but also having an appreciation for our whānau who get us through.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about your whānau and perhaps how they've influenced the direction you've gone in within the music industry.
I've always been, well, I've noticed over the course of a few decades that I've always been really interested in things that impacted our people on the ground, impacted whānau hapu iwi particularly. A natural thing to do because that was my tirohanga, or that is my tirohanga, that's the viewpoint that I take because I live where I come from. So anything that impacts a wider whānau dynamic is obviously going to impact me and my own. So I've always been really interested in how I could bring or give light to kaupapa that may not necessarily be spoken about in this kind of contemporary way. And so in 2012, I began a journey of, while I was here in Pōneke, because I stayed here for a while and I still love this place dearly. And I was in Wānanga with an incredible friend of mine, Ricky Gooch, amazing musician, who taught me a lot actually in the first few years that I was here in Pōneke. And he sat me down and he said to me, well, maybe you should consider your next work being about something that's actually a lot more personal to you in terms of where you come from, you know, the events that have taken place in your tribal area. And so I sat down and kind of thought, well, we've got there's lots of history that's happened here, obviously, but there's also a number of significant battles in contemporary times that have taken place here in Tauranga Moana that I can speak to directly because I am a descendant of those battles. And so Rules of Engagement was born from that particular kōrero, which happened only around the corner in Evans Bay. And it took me 5 years to really map out what that would look like and then bring it to light and release it. So Rules of Engagement was released in October of 2017. And for me, that was probably the most pivotal, profound moment of creative expression, because I was speaking directly to my own whakapapa. I was speaking directly to the whakapapa and to the blood that had been spilt at Te Ranga and at Pukehinahina. I was speaking directly to the impacts of raupatu, but trying to make it accessible in the way that it bridged gaps, that it brought peoples together under a common cause. And the common cause, always, for me, is kotahitanga, aha kua pēhea. The common cause is always unity, unifying people, not just Māori, but our treaty partners as well, because we are obligated to each other through te tiriti o Waitangi. And so I always, no matter what I do, that's always at the back of my mind because it's at the forefront of my ngākau. And that's always driven me as a woman, as a mama, as a human being here in Aotearoa. It's always, at the forefront of my thoughts when I'm creating any kind of work.
And also evident in a lot of the hua that comes from your ringaringa and the products of your work. Talk to us a bit about the curation of M9. Kōrero mai mō tēnā uatanga.
Yeah, M9.
Because you've artists, we recognise he kai waiata koe, engari ara i te mea he kai waiata noi, or it's not as if that's the only ma'i you do is singing, but actually there's a lot of pōtai that you wear, a lot of different hats you wear. So if we could hear just a little bit about that ma'i, because I can see how it transfers over as well. Yeah.
So M9 Aotearoa is a kaupapa that's been running now for 1.5 years, mainly out of Auckland. But the dream is to get it further afield, bring it into the major centres and out into our regions. But essentially it's a kaupapa that is a forum and a platform for Māori voices, Māori people to tell Māori stories. It's like 9 minutes where each nine kai kōrero, hence why it's called M9, get an opportunity to speak to a particular kaupapa, which is hāngai to what they do, whether they whether the main kaupapa, overarching kaupapa, is like actors. Our next instalment is about actors, Māori actors. They speak to their own experiences in acting and how they've forged their path to get there. Previously, we had a whole beautiful cohort. Our first kaupapa was around Matariki Rau Mahara, and it was 9 wahine Māori who had done significant things in different fields, and they spoke to the power of reflection and how reflecting on what they've done gives them further impetus to continue doing what they need to do to progress in their fields of work. So it's incredibly diverse, but it gives an opportunity for Māori to celebrate Māori, but also for Aotearoa to take ownership of these stories that are occurring and are created here by tangata whenua. And it's pertinent that we have these stories now, given the cultural climate, the political climate that we live in. It's even more important to have Māori voices elevated in a positive way that moves mountains. That's the drive behind that kaupapa, is bringing us together, kotahitanga.
Kia ora, and we're seeing that recurring theme of coming together, and some really strong messages, some quite political messages, but more than anything, people's opportunity to share whatever kōrero they have. What are some of the messages that you find really important, whether your own messages or those that you've taken from some of these experiences, that you then share through your own compositions, through your own waiata, bringing to the stage and into people's ears, minds, hearts? What are some of those key kaupapa?
Well, outside of kotahitanga, I think for me it's been a really important, I've had an important role to play, and the artist indeed has an important role to play in being and presenting their most authentic selves, however that looks, so that our people that are watching, listening, viewing, absorbing can take light from that and know that they too can be their most authentic selves and step into their light. Aha kua pēhea, aha kua te aha. I also think that for me, I've had to really dig deep into myself, grounding myself into who I actually am. I think we shed layers as we age and as we transition from one decade into another. And I think there's lots of power and understanding and being okay with the version that you are.
Kia ora.
At whatever phase that is. And I'm now at a point in my 40s where I'm in a phase where I am completely 100% comfortable with who I am and the skin that I'm in. I wasn't raised in te reo. I was raised in a Māori environment, but I wasn't raised in te reo Māori. But it is my language of choice with my tamariki. What I've seen from that is that my older sister, I've got 3 older sisters, but one in particular who lives in Tauranga, she is on her own real path because she can see the immense value that te reo Māori brings into any whānau, into any space. And she's just completed te tohu paitahi out of the University of Waikato, and seeing those transitions occur and knowing that you had little something to do with that spark, it's just been like the most, she doesn't know this, but I'm so incredibly proud of her. She's moving into another decade, and I know how daunting that can be for our people to go back and return to their language, because there's lots of whakamā, there's lots of angst, mai, e rā huatanga katoa. And so I really am grateful that I've had a little bit of inspiration for my sister to take that path, because now she's not getting off the waka, and that's the whole point. And I think for me, as I move through this musical space and as I kind of pick people up along the way, it's not something that I want to impose on anyone, like my political statements or my politicization of my music isn't anything that I want to impose on people, but it's there, hei whakaarotanga mā rātou. And if they want to pick it up along the way, if there's some māramatanga along the way for them that they pick up at a later stage, years later, pai ana tērā ki au. Because I'm just like, wow, it's having an impact irrespective of the time. And that's the role of the artist.
I love that. That's absolutely beautiful. And it sounds as if you've got all these different people jumping on the waka with you, and it gets a lot less lonely as we go along the way.
Tika.
And one of those layers perhaps that's being shed is that waka over the years, and not just for yourself but inspired upon other people. Thinking about te reo Māori and its place and value, ka taia anō koe ka kōrero mai, he mea I tupu mai koe te ao Māori, engari mo te kupu mo te kōrero, it came a bit later, and kei te pūtena. But tell us what that journey was like for you, and the value of te reo, its place in your world.
Well, he raukura hau no te kohanga. In 1985, kohanga reo on our marae, Maunga Tapu. I was part of the first kāhui cohort to come from that particular kohanga reo space. And then, kua auraki tia katoa tia taku au I te kura.
Nō reira, e hara I te mea kāre i a koe te reo.
Ai.
But it was a time when we didn't have our kura kaupapa established just yet, and we didn't have that continuity prepared.
And aku mātua, kōrereo. Kōrereo. Engari he hia no rāua, te tuku I etahi, hea te kōrero. They wanted to insert or place some seeds inside at least one of their babies where the language would grow. And that was me. I suppose it was helpful that I was always trying to clamber or tried to be heard as a young one, because probably they thought, oh well, this is our kohanga kid. We'll make sure that we give her some little gems along the way. But a lot of the time I was searching for that myself. I was searching for it myself. My father was a hard worker, so he was very rarely in the house. He was always working. So the language was something that I had to dig deep for myself. Much like mamahood, actually, you really got to dig deep if you want it. And I'm still on a journey, very much on a journey. I think every single day I'll still be learning different nuances of te reo Māori, different tirohanga, ways to look at it, ways to view it, ways to express it. Same thing with mamahood. So they're very similar, actually. Mamahood and te reo Māori, and the journeys that they both take you on, because they're both incredibly, nui ngā piki, he nui hoki ngā heke.
Kia ora.
So, yeah. Ka mihi au ki taku reo Māori, ka mihi au ki au ki tamariki anō hoki, nā rātou ahau I whakatena. Yeah.
Thinking about those piki and those eke, is that reflected in your waiata, or how do you bring that experience, sometimes struggle, learning journey, how do you bring that into your waiata through your compositions and through music in general?
Yeah, I think for me, as I've spoken about the theme around kotahitanga and having a platform and an opportunity to showcase both English and te reo Māori on the same level, I think that that's been a really important part of my journey as a musician and as a singer, as a composer. And it's something that I still continue to endeavour to create. It's the way that I like to create, because I want to bring as many people in as possible. And this is my style. I'm not going to be someone else or, be someone that I'm not. In order to sit in my most authentic self, I would like to showcase both languages side by side. He mana tō te reo Māori, he mana anō tō te reo Pākehā. So it's about getting a good balance and making sure that, I walk the talk. I walk the talk about kotahitanga. And, I live and breathe it. And if I can breathe life into it through my music, then that's what's been afforded to me, and so that's what I'll do.
Whakaaro rangatira, I ranga ana I te tira. Thinking about the compositions, waiata reorua, thinking about waka Māori, translating, if you like, from one language to another, I noticed that some of your waiata aren't direct translations, and perhaps that's a reflection of the political landscape as well and our way forward. Can you share it? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, going from te reo Māori to English or vice versa, and how that might be reflected in our society?
Beautiful question. I am real cognizant around switching from the thinking, out of thinking Pākehā, mainstream world, into thinking Māori, taiao, the way that we move as iwi Māori. And so I do my best to try and encapsulate those particular wairua in the different languages. Like I said, I'm still very much on a journey, a language journey. I'm trying to get better every single day. Over the years, I've really made an attempt to make sure that I, at some point, get to a level that I can, well, it's not that I'm not proud now, but I'm still on a journey of attaining a level that I think, for me, and for my babies, is the level that I want to be at. And I think that's actually a really noble quest, to really say to yourself, well, you're not quite there yet, but you're on a good journey here and you're progressing and you're getting so much better. And, you know, I want that to be reflective as well in my music. My reo's not perfect. And I hope that that encourages reo learners, reo speakers, people that are interested in taking up the language but haven't quite got there yet. I hope that that really gives them a sense of encouragement, that someone can actually openly say, I'm not quite there yet, I'm still learning, I'm still on a journey, and come with me. Yeah.
Pick up the paddle and jump aboard.
Let's do this. Rangai te tira.
Ana. Having a think about the compositions again. What kind of space do you go into? How do you prepare yourself to compose? Is it that you need to set up a very specific environment, the climate has to be perfect, or is it sort of something that comes about by chance or by a whole heap of inspiration? How does that work?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's like you've picked something in my brain and I've gone, you know, you've taken it because you can obviously get a sense of something from me. But yeah, us, we're interesting, us composers, us artsy folk. You're right, conditions need to be a certain way in terms of, I'm not talking about like the heat or the cool or anything like that, but the wairua, the vibe, the people. People are everything. And I'm a person that enjoys collaborating. I don't like necessarily sitting in silo. He wā kia pērā, engari mōku ake te nuinga o te wā he pai, te mahi tahi ki tahi atu. And yeah, my preference, I've noticed as I've gotten older, is to collaborate. Opportunity to spark, opportunity to debate, opportunity to wānanga, opportunity to learn. There's some incredible learnings when you sit with people that you've never worked with before. And over the course of the next few years, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to sit with people that I've never worked with before, because it enables you to push your own boundaries. And I think that that's incredibly important for any artist to grow. I've been singing since time immemorial, and I'm still learning so much. You know, I'm still learning so much about my own vocal processes. I'm still learning so much about how I breathe or how I don't breathe or how I should breathe. I'm learning so much about what happens to your voice after you've given birth. I'm learning so much about what happens to your voice when you don't take care of it properly. And, you know, longevity in this game is everything. Because as a singer, that's my primary focus, is singing. That's my instrument. And I want to maintain that. So I need to know how to look after it properly. So, yeah, I think I went a really long way around that pātai, but he pai te wānanga ki au. Yeah.
No, ātaua tēnā. And even learning more about yourself and sort of what works for you, and shedding yet another layer that was good to have.
Yeah.
But I've learnt more, and that can, I don't know, that can return to the whenua perhaps.
Exactly.
You've collaborated with quite a few different artists, Shei Fu, LAB, some of my absolute faves. What have some of the learnings been like collaborating with some of these artists? Because you talk about constantly learning, and I take it that you've learnt something collaborating with a whole heap of different people. What do you take away in your kete from some of these interactions? Or were there some highlighted or key collabs that really fulfilled you?
I think now that I'm actually thinking about it, my collaborations have mostly been with men. And is that problematic or is that not? I'm not quite sure. But what I do understand from that is that I more than likely gravitate towards men because that was the environment that I was raised in. And a lot of the time I've noticed about myself is that, you know, ka haere takirua te tangata, right? Taha tāne, taha wahine. Ira tāne, ira wahine. And a lot of the time I lean lots more into my masculinity. And I'm understanding now as I move into this next phase that it's time to kind of explore my more feminine side. And, you know, I ki mai koe, he wahine, you know, pāpā ho tō reo, tikara wātu. Yeah, that's exactly right. So what can I do now if I move into my more feminine side? How will that display itself in a creative setting? How will that transpire in a composition? How does that version of Ria look? And I'm actually getting goosebumps about that now because I've never fully considered that whole notion, that I've actually moved more masculine than I have feminine, even though he wahine ahau, he māmā ahau. But that was always my tendency because I was raised by a man. So that was a brilliant question, e hoa, because it's really made me think about my own, how I carry myself. And although I carry myself with those mātāpono of those nannies and those aunties of mine, I've always kind of moved a bit more titaha because I've been more in my ira tāne. So perhaps in my 40s, it's time to ruku back into my ira wahine and really step into that light. That'll be an interesting wānanga.
What an exciting journey. And you speak of wānanga, they're the external wānanga, but they're also the internal wānanga
100%.
that we don't necessarily get to see until it becomes an external wānanga, perhaps through music or other productions. And we're so fortunate to get a little sneak peek into some of what's going on internally, perhaps, if we're so privileged to have access to that.
Yeah, kia ora.
Are there some internal wānanga that are sort of in the pipelines to become hua a waiata?
Well, now that we've had this particular short wānanga, I'm already, you know, he nawa te kiri. And so I was like, perhaps this is the correct space to move into. Moving into the exploration of what that version of Ria looks, sounds, feels, presents like. But I haven't released any work since 2020. So we're almost 4 years actually to me releasing work. My last work was Manawa Wera, which was a full reggae album. Again, all men players, men producers, male producers. Not that that's a bad thing. That's awesome because it brought out a particular style that I really, really wanted to gravitate to. But now it's like, wow, I need to continue having this wānanga that we speak of, that you've brought to light. And thank you for that, e hoa. It's not normally, it's not a usual thing that I get, you know, a wahine of your stature really sparking something like that in me. And now I've got a hunger there to explore that more. But it will always remain political because, as Moana Jackson said, to be Māori is to be political.
Absolutely.
So it'll always be something political, whether it's a little bit covert or more overt. But yeah, we'll see how we go.
If we can spend just a short moment, because I've actually got quite a particular pātai to ask you, but I'll ask you this pātai first. I remember 2011 Rugby World Cup. This was, I was still quite young and didn't have much access to a TV, if I'm being honest, or also didn't have rugby tickets. But this was the first time that I heard this booming voice singing Ave Maria, and it just caught me completely off guard. And what I wanted, the first part I'll ask you is, how do you produce that sound, or how do you nurture that sound? So you did mention about looking after yourself, looking after your korokoro as well. So how do you look after that?
Yeah, ko te pātai o ngā pātai tērā. Engari moku ake ko te moe, pai te moe, mo te korokoro, te whakaora i te korokoro. Sleep, really good rest, not thrashing yourself, being pono to yourself. I think at the end of the day, being pono to what your tinana is telling you, being pono to what your korokoro is telling you, think about it, like just really think about what your actions do to your voice. I mean, if this is your method to give messaging, to inspire people, if it is your method to earn yourself a living, to pay your bills, to keep kai on the table, you want to do everything that you can to ensure that that's nurtured. And so, big vocal, but I'm very aware of my limitations. I know by the room that I'm in whether the air conditioning is too thick.
Oh, wow.
On my because it reacts immediately. I know that if I'm in like a particular like an opera house or like a large theatre, and if there's smoke and it reacts to my voice, I know immediately to exit. So there's all these things that you pick up along the way that you know how to treat your voice. And I know so many singers have their own way of protecting, because you've got to protect, like you protect your Māori and you protect your wairua, you protect your family, you have to protect your voice as well, because if that's the way that people connect to you, if that's the way that you bring people in, or if that's the way that you can unite people, then you want to make sure that that's intact at all times.
I'm hearing undertones, and we need to protect our voice as well. But I find that absolutely fascinating. E ara tēnei te korokoro tui. Absolutely not, but absolutely fascinating. Have there been times where you've sort of struggled with the environment that you've been placed in, the practical environment, and how have you overcome those sort of barriers where the setting just wasn't quite right for you?
O kei te mohi o koe he kaihaka ahau, kaihaka, o tawhito ahau. And at the same time, while I was doing kapa haka, I was also on the verge of a burgeoning musical career, and you know, they were battling, man. Haka and the burgeoning vocal career were battling, because you have to employ other tactics when you are a kaihaka and someone who is an artist. And, you know, so many can attest to that, because there are so many kaiwaiata that have come out of haka as the puna. But there could be so many more. There could be so many more. And, you know, it's about navigating how best to haka, even though you're a kaiwaiata, how best to protect that while giving as much as you can to the cause and to the kaupapa. There's so many tricks, so many tricks to ensuring that, you know, you maintain vocal integrity when you're on the haka stage, and then when you're in recording studio and performing live too. So, yeah, it's a tricky balance though. It ain't easy.
Two very different environments as well.
Yeah.
What would if I could ask, what would your top trick be, or top tip if you had one?
I don't know if my old tutors will let me say this. A top trick that I have, if you are an artist in the making, in a rōpū, and if you're in a kapa, and you're wanting to transition those skill sets into music, I'd say that rest is everything. Key. So sometimes staying at the marae for your vocals isn't a good idea, especially after you've had a big wānanga. You know, weekend wānanga, you're at the marae. You know, ka haere tonu ngā kōrero, kararu pia te korokoro. So, yep, sleep, really good rest, lots and lots of water. Picking your moments when to hiki, not haka.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, hiki, not haka. It's a type of haka, but it's more so an uplift, like a short exaltation, in and out, in and out, in and out. Especially if you're featured as a soloist too, you want to make sure that you maintain.
I have always wondered that. You've come out with some absolutely amazing solos in the wakawatea, the final item. And I'm thinking, how did we get from the eke, and it's, you know, this amazing strong haka, I'm hearing 40 voices across the stage.
Yeah.
And we've still got this beautiful, booming yet angelic voice at the very end. I've always wondered how that happens and how you preserve yourself.
It's an incredible amount of restraint, especially when you're in, you know, te mura o te ahi, and you are giving everything, because you've given everything up to that point the last however many months of your life. All your pūtea, all your will to live has been given to your kapa, and it's in that moment on the stage that you really want to give as much as you can. And so you do that, but you do that very calculated. You know your moments, and you've actually trained your moments over the course of all those wānanga that you've had over the course of those months. So, yeah, there's a science, man. There's a science. I'm sure Rob Ruha will tell you the same thing. I'm sure Pere Wihongi will tell you the same thing. Troy Kingi, Maisie Rika. Yeah, the whole cohort. Yeah.
So there's also a lot, not just going on physically, but there's also a lot going on mentally.
Always.
And probably emotionally to make sure that you can be in a space to do that careful calculating.
Absolutely, 100,000%. 100,000%, yeah.
I wanted to ask you this, Pātai, because for some time now, you've received so much recognition. A lot of people have been following you quite closely. And when we hear your voice, we recognize it immediately and we're drawn to you. With so much recognition and attention, how do you stay grounded? How are you not swept off with the winds and can stay Ria? Because we've seen you stay Ria. How do you do that?
I think, again, it's just going back to your environment, right? The environment that you surround yourself in. I think that's the most important. My crew is incredibly small, and my focus is always now about my tamariki. So I'm very calculated about my time. I'm very intentional with my time, who I give it to, what I give it to. And yeah, I mean, home is home, right? Yeah. I'm just Ria at home. I'm just another niece, another cousin, a sister, an auntie. And I think those same value systems will always permeate through because it's ko tātou tērā. Ahakoa ko waikoe. Ahakoa o pukenga. Yeah, I think that's always going to be the case at the end of the day. Grab a tea towel and the wharekai girl.
Kia ora. Do the dishes.
Do the dishes.
Favourite little saying, do the dishes. We all need to do the dishes.
That's right.
So as you share this kōrero, I start to think about your waiata that we would love to hear. Your waiata, I am a child. Can you share a bit more with us about this waiata?
Very, very special waiata. I was actually inspired in 2007. Tama Waipara, a dear friend of mine, beautiful musician, incredible songwriter, singer. He had composed a waiata and performed it at the Māori Music Awards back in 2007 in Palmerston North. And at the same time that was happening, Te Matatini was happening like that same week. And so we were there. And he performed one of his waiata and he just gave me all the feels. I didn't know who he was, so I was just like, who is this human? This voice that is coming from the stage with him and his guitar and these words and this vibe that he was emanating from the stage. And I was so inspired from him in that particular moment. And so I wanted to write an ode to that waiata that he sang on stage.
Yeah.
And so, ka whānau maia, I'm a child, and it speaks to all the places that I am fortunate to have whakapapa to. It speaks to how we as a collective nation can take pride in this place, this stunning place that we call home. It doesn't matter if you are tangata whenua, tangata tiriti, tangata moana, doesn't matter. We can all take ownership and really being proud of being from or being of or living in Aotearoa. So that's, again, kotahitanga, back to that same kaupapa. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the crux of that waiata.
Ataua. As the years have gone by since the time you composed that waiata, has your connection with it changed or been influenced by other factors or grown in other ways? What's that been like? Because it has been some time since you first composed that.
Yeah.
And with such a strong title, I Am a Child. What does that mean to you today?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I haven't sung it for a while, and I'm choosing to sing it for this kaupapa because it's like not the first version of Ria in a musical composition setting, but a early iteration of Ria and a version that was still very much grounded in who she was at that time and what that looks like now in this Ria. It will present differently, it will sing differently, but the meaning is still exactly the same. it still comes back to that sense of unity, that sense of kotahitanga, the sense of celebration, to call these particular islands in the Pacific home. And that's what I always, as you've heard, that's what I always try and hearken it back to, but I always have at the foundation of all the mahi who I am, tauranga moana, maua o maunga, te awanui moana, te tāhuna o rangataua, tā ki timu waka, mā tātua waka, kau tēnei.
Tēnā koe, mea kumi inu ki a koe, iau e tua uana i tō aroaro. Kei te waene ruku o onu i te wānanga, kei te waene whakaaro nui ki te kupu, kei te ngutu kaa ki te tuku i ngā kōrero ki te iwi, kei te mihi atu. And if we could, I'd love to hear your waiata, I am a child.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
Rising sun, mountain strong and proud, where the land meets the sea, ocean waves subside to calm water. I'm a child of a land draped in green, where my people are the color of the morning light, beautiful. Oh, so beautiful. Tuana ui te tihi o maua, ka titiro atu ki te rāwhiti, i runga ariki ki whitianga, ko tūtawa ke. Hangai te titiro ki whare kahika, tu whakairi ora te tangata, au e poraurangi e. Hoki whakaroto ki taupo, tongari ro maunga, tu whare toa te iwi. Taku waka ki runga wai katoa, he piko he taniwha, ko kingi tu heitia. Ka hoki nei au ki te rāwhiti, ki tauranga moana. Ko rauru ki tahi e, of the long white cloud, born unto green stone waters. Said you were born unto So beautiful.
That was Ria Hall with I Am a Child, accompanied by James Illingworth. This series is produced by Toitiara Puoru, Sound Centre for New Zealand Music. All waiata have been provided courtesy of the artist. To find out more about today's episode or more about the music of Aotearoa New Zealand, go to sounds.org.nz. That's sounz.org.nz. Ko Lana Te Piki Broughton tēnei. Thanks for watching. Mā te wā.
Toitiara Puoru, Sounds.